Welcome to Thrashcast, episode 39. This is a big one for us. I know next week is 40, but this week we have some special guests with us. We have Kim and Jason from Allfather Metal.
Yeah.
And we're all going to convene here to get ready tonight to talk about our top 15 albums of the year. So this should be a really good show for all of us. But before we start, let me just give you some heads up about the show itself. You can find us at www.horrormetalsounds.com. You can also find us on our YouTube channel. So you just have to search like Thrashcast, HMS. It'll come up. You can find us there. You can find us on Spotify as well. And you can find us on what am I missing this?
Instagram.
No, well, Instagram, yeah, but I was gonna say
Is it Rumble or something?
Rumble, you got it. Thank you, Billy. Thank you. Yeah, on Rumble, yeah, we're also on Rumble as well. So
I'm usually the guy forgetting stuff on the.
I know, I know. Oh well. Anyways, yeah, you can find us on Rumble. So so it's great. So we do appreciate all the comments. We appreciate the likes, and when you support us, it helps the algorithm, especially on YouTube. So we do appreciate all that. We're doing well. We did a short for Iron Maiden for not Bruce Dickinson, but for the retirement of Nico McBrain, and we're at like 10,000 views on that short on YouTube, which is pretty insane.
What? That's awesome.
10,000 views, couldn't believe it.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, we're plugging along. So tonight, we're gonna kick it off with our lists. What we're gonna do, so everyone's kind of aware. Each of us are going to go five bands, so like from 15 to 11, and then we're going to do 10 down to 5, and then 5 down to 2, and then we'll all one final round for our number one pick. So that's how we're going to do it tonight. So since we're starting with our special guest from Allfather, we thought we'd let you two go first. And Kim, why don't you start us off?
Me?
Yeah, go for it.
Too much pressure. Okay. Well, I mean, I broke the rules a little bit, and I had 16 albums.
That's awesome.
Maybe I'll put number 16 as a honorable mention.
Okay.
So you want me to start with number 15?
Go for it.
Okay. I'm also gonna give you guys a heads up that like I have some non-metal type stuff at the end, near the end of my list. So, sorry for being a poser, but
no, not at all.
Okay, so number 15 is a band called Leprous. The album is called Melodies of Atonement. This is a band I've been a fan of for quite a long time. They're not metal, but they are connected to the metal scene in a lot of ways. The singer has done a lot of like collaborations with Ishan, and the guy just has like a brilliant voice. Very avant-garde type stuff with electronic elements. Yeah, it's a good album if you're looking for something different, and if you're into kind of like an 80s vibe.
And fun fact, he's the singer's the brother-in-law of Ishan of Emperor.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've not heard of them, but it sounds cool.
Number 14 is Deicide Banished by Sin. This is a solid album.
14?
Felt like a throwback. Yeah, 14. You want to go? Don't judge me. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of good stuff, man.
That's true.
Yeah, Deicide is one of my favorite bands of all time. So, yeah. But, yeah, like I said, solid album. And it felt like, a throwback to the old style. And it's a good listen. It's all the way front to back. Really enjoyed listening to this, especially after, like, not being too into the last few that they put out.
And you guys got to meet Glenn Benton, correct?
I think
Briefly.
Kim,
Yeah.
Didn't you, Kim?
Yeah, outside of Lee's Palace.
Yeah.
Wicked.
Yeah. And cool story. I got a very small piece in the Decibel magazine feature on them earlier this year. Justin Norton, good friend of ours, who has been covering Deicide for like, I don't know, a million years, did a big piece on him
Mhm.
in the Decibel magazine and interviewed me for that. So that was fun.
Did you mention
Check
that
it out.
earlier? Did you mention it earlier in the year? Because I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get the issue, like the physical issue on the Decibel
Yeah,
website.
Yeah, Deicide's the front page, right? Or the cover.
Yeah.
That one.
Cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Justin's a
I got-
super talented writer. He's been writing for them for years. So
Yeah.
he reached
Yeah.
out to Kim and she just gave
Yeah.
her history with that band. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Very cool. Man,
That is
that's
cool.
Yeah.
awesome.
Justin's good shit. And I got to
Yeah.
talk about how I named my pet rat Benton when I was 16.
Nice.
Nice.
Number 13 is a band called Horna, black metal bands. I'm gonna just call out that there's a lot of stuff on my list that I can't pronounce. So it's called Nyx something. I'm not even gonna
Okay.
try to butcher that. It's some good old evil and fast black metal. If you like your black metal sort of on the faster side, like a little more pumped, a little more headbangy, then Horn is a band for you. Actually, Jason calls them happy black metal, which I don't know how I feel about that, but
They got a bit of a, like she said, they got a bit of a foot tap to them.
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah, they got a bit of
Yeah.
a groove. Yeah, they're very
don't
into
wanna
that
call
like
them-
Finnish black metal sound. But yeah, sorry.
yeah. I don't want to call them thrash, but
No.
there's something there.
Yeah.
You know.
There's a little bit
Yeah.
of black and roll here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
or yeah. Same vibes. Same vibes as thrash. Number 12, Defeated Sanity, Chronicles of
Ooh.
Lunacy.
Good one.
Yeah, Defeated Sanity is like my comfort food. Yeah, I don't think those guys can do no wrong for me. Slam metal, just love it. It's like a warm, fuzzy blanket for me. And this is a pretty solid album.
Cool.
Number 11 is Ghost Prophecy. No, not ghosts that dress up like church people, but the other ghost.
Without
That's
the
the
H.
first thing I thought.
No
That's
H.
what I thought.
Yeah.
G-O-S-T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a band for people who loved the electronic music and the horror of the 90s.
Yeah.
So if you're into like, Skinny Puppy, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit of early Nine Inch Nails and just
Agreed.
like really, really good 90s horror shit, or maybe even 80s, this is a good band for you.
Mhm.
And number 10 is Ulver, Liminal Animals. Ulver is a really old school black metal band that kind of turned experimental rock, electronica, ambient, kind of 80s influenced.
Okay.
I want to give a shout out to them for their cover of Eyes Without a Face that they did this year by Billy Idol. It's so
Cool.
good. It's so good. Ulver's kind of like my chill music. It's just something I'll put on if I'm doing shit and I just want to play something really loud that's like groovy.
Yeah, that's kind of like Tears for Fears
Oh, neat.
Okay.
style stuff sometimes, right?
Well,
Would you say?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
But they have like a deep rooted connection to like metal, black metal, because
Right.
of, how they started. They were like one of the original like raw black metal
Norwegian
bands.
black metal bands, yeah.
Yeah. And they've changed quite a bit since then, but
They have.
definitely still super cool music. So
Cool.
yeah, that's my 15 to 10.
Wicked.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. And Jason, how about you?
I don't know if I can beat that, man. Those are some good picks. But
I bet you will.
number 15, I got to go with Nile. The Underworld Awaits Us All.
Nice.
Everyone knows Nile. It's their 10th full length, I believe. And it featured brand new vocalist Zach Jeter. I really prefer Zach over the last vocalist, who I can't remember his name because I think Zach kind of channels Dallas Toller Wade, who was the classic growler for Nile for many, many years. So it kind of brings back the vibes of some of the earlier Nile albums. Number 14 is Coffin Storm, Arcana Rising, and that is Fenriz of Dark Throne. That's his classic metal / doom / thrash side project. It's a really, really, really great album. Kind of continues
Wait.
on. Yep.
I don't even know about this. What is this?
Yeah, I reviewed it on either, I think, the Metal Pit actually. I think it came out pretty early. So yeah, it's just his project with a few other guys from Norway, a few classic metal guys, and it kind of carries on in the vein of contemporary Darkthrone, which is kind of left black metal and incorporates a lot more classic metal and doom and thrash, and it's kind of that vibe, but his project solely, so it's really cool. Number 13 is a band from Toronto called Adversarial, and their album Solitude with the Eternal. So they've been around for a long time. I believe they're a two-man project. They've been around for many, many years, but they keep themselves in the shadows. They don't really play live, like once in a blue moon. They don't do interviews. They don't do any of that kind of thing. And their take on black war metal is pretty extreme. I only started listening to this album in the past couple of weeks, and I wasn't sure if it was going to make my list, but I've grown to love it. So that's at number 13. Number 12 is Achilles, and their album House of the Black Germanus. They're from Colorado. It's their fourth album. I really dug their last album from a few years ago. This one came out of nowhere. Yeah. It's just
I heard really good things about this one, but I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, I checked it out earlier in the year, and then it kind of slipped off my radar. And then to prepare for this, I was looking for albums that, that I dug earlier in the year, and I was like, oh yeah, this one. So I listened to it a couple of times. I'm like, yeah, this definitely makes a list. So if you're into just like really great, just solid black metal with, some Swedish influence, like some melodic vibes to it, it's really cool. It's not overly melodic, but it does have a little bit of that in there. Number 11 is a band I reviewed I believe for Allfather, and it's Antichrist Siege Machine.
Oh, yeah, good album.
Yeah, it's a good album. Vengeance of the Eternal Fire, which is black death with touches of grind. Third full length, just two guys. This one kind of blew me away because I never heard them before. And when I reviewed this one, I was like, how the hell did I sleep on these guys? Because they've had, as I said, two albums prior to this. Just really solid black death, as I mentioned, with touches of grindcore, early grindcore.
And some thrash. A little bit of thrash.
And yeah, a little bit thrash, yep.
Yeah.
Number 10 is Aberration, and their album Demonolatari. Hope I got that right. But they're from Norway, and they kind of channel 87 to 89 Morbid Angel, like Altars of Madness era.
Nice.
So really,
Wicked
really,
album.
really cool. Yeah, I came by this one over the last couple of weeks when I was trying to figure out what the hell is going to make my list, because I literally could not get beyond 10 that I really, really dug. So I was just digging into, some of the stuff that was released earlier this year that I hadn't heard, and came across these guys, and I really dig the album. So yeah, if you like early Morbid Angel or anything Floridian death metal, circa 87 to 89, you might really dig it. So yeah, that's my 15 through 10.
Wait, sorry, Jason, what was the name of that band?
Aberration. Abhorration.
Aberration, yeah.
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
Maybe we can all copy our list into the comment section, because there's going to be one you want to check out.
For sure, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, everyone, let's do that. Yeah, when the video goes up, just put your list in the comments. That way people can look at them.
Because I'd want to check that one out.
Good idea, Billy. Good point.
Cool.
Okay, Jim, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I got some visual aids. So,
cool.
Ooh, stepping it up.
Mine's not
That's because you bought everything. You bought it.
That's so true.
So what can I say? And I'm built here within stacks of CDs. Like, I'll even bring this out. I have Asia sitting here. I don't know why I'm bringing it up, but anyway.
Why not?
I know. So my number 15 pick is a late edition. I went with Black Dahlia Murder, Servitude. I got to be honest, I've never owned an album by these guys, never really listened to them before. And I pre-ordered this and just fell in love with the band. I've bought their whole catalog, but this album is amazing. It's got the new Brian on vocals from the then deceased Trevor, who was part of the band. Anyways, he was the guitarist. So came out on September 27th. It's their 10th studio album, and I fell in love with it. I gotta be honest, it probably could be a bit higher, but 15 is hard to pick. So, but anyways, it got in there.
Funny story about that album. When we were in Detroit a couple of weeks ago to see Exodus, we met these guys from Detroit. We're outside on the patio, and the one guy was freaking out. He's like, "Oh my God, the new singer from Black Dahlia Murder's at the show. He's just walking around."
Nice.
He's like, "I'm gonna get my picture with him." And apparently they live in the area. I didn't know that.
Cool.
Like from Michigan.
cool.
So yeah.
Oh, I mean, this album, the single Mammoth's Hand, which came out in August. I mean, I'm going to do probably a list of my top 5 songs. That will definitely be in it. And it's just such a good album. And I can't believe I've gone this long. There's so many classic albums of theirs that were so good. But I just skipped over it. I don't know why. Maybe I always thought they were a lot more, rather than melodic death, I thought maybe they were a lot more grind, which I don't mind, but I just I think through that time frame, I stayed away from it. So I never really got into it. But man, this album just kicks ass.
Awesome.
Interesting number 14 pick.
I never listened to this band either, so I mean, you've convinced me to check out this album.
You got to check out the track Mammoth's Hand. It's amazing. And I've gotten into arguments online about people are really rioting me about, Jay, you pick too much death metal. Like, what? There's a lot of melodic parts in all of death metal. I don't care what anybody says. It's phenomenal. And this is purely melodic death metal in my mind. And I mean, it's great. I mean, it's just awesome. I absolutely love it.
Well, Jimmy, this is like the year of death metal.
Oh, yeah.
I know for a fact we're going to get people complaining because they'll bug Billy that this is Thrashcast. Why is there not enough Thrash albums? I know we're going to get that. I just know it.
I have a couple.
I mean,
there wasn't that many this year. There wasn't.
I know, but you got to understand when you're like a thrash podcast, people expect thrash. They don't want change.
Yeah. I have 3 or 4. So.
Well, so do I. But I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying, though, Billy?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll get some converts.
Yeah,
maybe they'll start checking out some other stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing about top lists. Like it's one of my favorite times of the year.
Same with me.
Listen to everybody.
I know.
And I'm always writing down. I always find like 3-4 bands I've never heard before and love them.
Yeah. Right? You can't get to everything, right? So you got to rely on other people.
Yeah. Exactly.
My list is usually like 99% death metal, and this year it's all black metal. So I don't know. I guess it's just too much time in Europe or something.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all right.
14 is kind of an interesting pick. It's Axel Rudy Pell's Risen Symbol. I got to be honest. So I think this was my most listened to band in 2 months. And it was all because I was drinking out on my patio. And this is more family friendly than a lot of the stuff I listen to. So it just got the shit played out of it. But it's more like, I mean, he is a phenomenal German guitarist. This is their 22nd album. So I've been buying up a lot of his stuff. And like Guardian Angel, the single off of it is phenomenal. It's got kind of a bit of an 80s, I wouldn't say just an 80s, maybe traditional with a little bit of maybe hair metal kind of sound to it. I'm not a hair metal fan, so I will never throw it in there, but it's just really good. And the guitar solos on this album are phenomenal.
I love that album, Jim.
Yeah. Wicked album. Number 13, we head back to death metal.
Woo, good.
So we've got Necrot,
Nice.
Lifeless Birth. I mean, holy cow, this is their 3rd studio album. It was released in April. You can't find.
I forgot about that.
Oh, and I mean
we saw them a few times. Caught them a few times this year. They were really good.
Oh, wicked! And the song "Cut the Cord" off this album is like just a death metal anthem for 2024. So good.
And that cover, Jim. That cover.
Oh yeah, isn't that cover amazing?
I love that cover.
Absolutely love it. Then I kind of got an interesting one here that I don't know if anybody else will have it, but I went with Rage. After Lifelines.
Nice. Yeah.
Man, I got to be honest with you. I think Billy got me into these guys. He was going to go see. You saw them in Toronto, and I bought this right when you were going. And I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's German power metal, and this has got a really good.
Can't go wrong with that.
So it's CD1 is Afterlife, and the CD2 is Lifelines, which are kind of like just more symphonic versions, not necessarily of the songs that are on side one, but just really, really good. It's their 25th studio album. And this came out in March 29th, and I know Billy went to see them, and I've got a few other albums that I've gotten since then. I think one, Billy, what's your best favorite one?
You got to get Perfect Man.
Perfect Man, that's the one I picked that up too.
One.
That's amazing. Amazing album. Go a little bit old school and a little more traditional and a little bit more. I went with Saxon, Hellfire, and Damnation. Saxon's my favorite, even more so than Iron Maiden. My favorite, although I have another one on this list that's given them a run for their money. Probably my favorite traditional band, hardest working band out there for, these guys have 1/10, the fame of Iron Maiden, but keep putting out material every 2 years. And these guys are well into their 70s. This is the first album to feature Brian Tatler from Diamond Head. He went on and kind of replaced Paul Quinn, who, due to most likely probably age and just health, especially for touring and on the new album and that. So really, really good stuff on here. And this came out in January 19th. So it's been on my list for quite some time. And my number 10, Midnight, Hellish Expectations. I love Midnight. I mean, this is like death metal meets Motorhead, meets a little touch of black metal, it's just so many genres put together, and it's one guy. I mean, this is so cool. Athanar, you've got him doing it. He goes on the road with a session drummer. They wear hoods. I mean, hoods are cool. Black hoods.
Hoods are cool.
They look imposing. The bullet belts. I mean, really, really good. That's their 6th full-length studio album. They've got a ton of EPs and a lot of live stuff. That came out in March. And you listen to Merciless Slaughter on here, and it just brings goosebumps every time I listen to it. Wicked, wicked album. That's my 10.
That's another band that I caught this year live. And they put on a great show. Yeah. Super good show.
Wicked.
Really fun to photograph.
Nice.
Cool. Very cool.
That's mine, guys.
And they're managed by the singer of Night Demon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, Billy, let's you kick it off now.
Okay, cool. So my number 15 is Opeth, Last Will and Testament. So it's fairly new. So I'm still kind of absorbing this. So it could very well be that in a month or two, this will be higher up. But I mean, I love early Opeth, especially in the more death metal period. The later albums have been more prog, and they're okay, but maybe probably not a top 15 album. But I think where this album excels is it brings the best out of like the entire discography, right? The growls are back. There's still definitely prog elements, there's no doubt, but there's death metal chugs, not super heavy on the death metal, but it's made a return in places. And hell, they even have Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull playing flute on a couple of tracks. So definitely still keeping some of that prog stuff there. But like it's, as always, the songwriting's complex and many layers. So for me anyways, it takes me many listens. Like it's only been out 2-3 weeks. I've given it about 8 spins, but every time I just find new stuff and it clicks more and more. So I expect.
And the interesting thing about that is I recall, reading interviews where they were like, we're never growling again. Like we're done with growling. And then here they are.
No, exactly. It's been a while. So yeah, I mean, when I hear people talk about it, everything they start with is, and the growls are back.
And it wasn't, when I interviewed Isaac, the drummer from Blood Incantation, he's a huge Opeth fan, and he mentioned a funny little story about Opeth in this album. He said when they got rid of the death metal vocals, it wasn't actually Michael's idea. It was the drummer, Martin Mendez, at the time. He's like, I think we should try something else. And Michael's like, okay, sure, let's try it. And then they just went on that whole journey without the death metal vocals. And then for this album, again, it was Mendez who said, maybe we should bring the growls back.
Also, we know who wears the pants.
Yeah, exactly. And Michael's like, sure, let's bring it back.
It's a good choice.
So, a lot of people might think it's Michael's just like, I'm done with growling, but it was just, just an off the cuff thing. You want to do this? Sure, let's do this.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so my number 14 is a band maybe not as well known, Laceration, and the album name is I Erode. So I would say the best comparison would be like the first three albums of Malevolent Creation, which are amazing albums, or Demolition Hammer. It's not the most original stuff, but it's just the riffs, and the riffs are massive. The punishing drumming, it just fuels all these songs. So yeah, that's a monster. Like, I love that album. And unfortunately, as I watch people's top list, nobody has that one.
Yeah, it's a great
So
album.
maybe I'm just out there on my own island, or I like to think people just haven't discovered that one. That's their second album, so they've been around for a bit. My number 13, Jimmy already hit this. Jim, we got a couple of the same in our
Nice.
half. So this is maybe my biggest surprise of the year. Saxon, Hellfire, and Damnation. I mean, what can you say? Byford,
Yeah.
like at 72. It's like Rob Halford. I mean, these two guys don't age, at least in the studio, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's been 46 years since they released their first album. And this thing is one of the best in years, I think. It's fresh. The band sounds inspired. I mean, it's clear they love what they do. So yeah, it's great. Like one of the best in at least a decade for Saxon, at least in my opinion.
I didn't realize they were in their 70s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's badass.
Yeah.
Them.
Very badass.
And the vocalist had like a massive heart attack a couple years back, and had, I think, quadruple bypass. And so he's back out there hitting the road hard again.
Yep.
So they're playing shows still. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I've seen them. I've seen them on,
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, they just did a whole tour just recently, actually. So my number 12, another match, Jim, Rage, After Lifeline. So yeah, I think you kind of hit it well. It's a tale of two stories. It's split into two, right? I mean, Rage is known. There's a number of Rage albums where the whole album is with an orchestra. So that's not new for them. He's dabbled in that. But it's all about PV, right? He's the vocalist and bassist and songwriter who's been on every one of the Rage albums. He's the only guy left. But the one thing I always say about Rage is, at least when it comes to, more traditional metal or whatever we call these guys, because you can call them speed, traditional, power, all that's mixed in. But like PV writes the best choruses, the catchy choruses. There's very few people in the business who can write a catchy chorus. They're like total earworms, and they stick in your head forever. So that's cool. My number 11 is a band that comes from my second home, from Philadelphia. So I'm going with Crypt Sermon and the Stage in Rose. So these guys, I guess if you had to classify them, you'd throw on doom metal, but they're so much more than doom metal. Right, so you'd maybe say Candlemass. So that's a part of it. But when I listen to doom metal, I always got to do it in half albums, because I find like by the end of a full album, it's like, okay, it's a bit slow. But the secret sauce for Crypt Sermon is they mix in traditional metal. And so you'll constantly hear things like, like harmonies or dueling leads that you get from Judas Priest or Maiden, right? So it just totally mixes up the song. The vocalist, Brooks Wilson, all his vocal lines are so hooky and memorable. Songwriting is great. There's songs that are 8 minutes. There's songs that are 3 minutes. It's a fantastic album. So I highly recommend folks folks to check that out. And then number 10, Kim gave me a lesson on how to say this. And I got to give credit to Jason, who got me to try the band. So I think I got it right now, Jotun, and the album Kinship. So just love this album. It's still growing on me. The songwriting is so dynamic, right? The beautiful atmospheric passages, the more aggressive sections. It's just all the songs take you on a journey. They're just fantastic. The musicianship is stellar, and you got to say, like, you know, the vocalist John has one of the best vocal ranges. You got everything, like from feeling to aggression to, like, I mean, just all over the place. So this is another one that's constantly moving up the list as I absorb the album. But unlike Opeth, these guys, you know, so there's a lot going on in the album, and I know Kim and Jason, you guys know that. But what I like is there's something to grab onto immediately on first listen, and then all the other stuff clicks in as you give it multiple listens. So really good stuff, and that's another one I think in 2 months, if I had to redo my list, maybe making its way up to the top 5.
Wow.
I have so many things to say, but I'm going to save it.
I'm guessing it's on your list.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
Okay. So Ken, I guess we're off to you. That was my number 10.
Perfect. All right. So number 15 for me is Morbid Saint, Swallowed by Hell. Now this came out back in February, so it's quite a while on High Roller Records. This is their third album. Old school thrash. I don't know if it rivals Spectrum of Death in 1990, which is an absolute beast of an album for me for thrash. But I think it's pretty, yeah, perfect. Yeah, and I was just gonna say the artwork by Ed Repka is like killer. I love it. It's a really good album. I was hoping for a bit more, like it's ferocious at times, but Jay Visser's vocals haven't changed much over the years. He's still very like rabid and spitting out the lyrics, but it's a good release. It's a really good release. Number 14, like Billy, I do have Laceration on my list as well, so you're not alone there, Billy. And then it's funny because you're the one that brought this band up to me, and I wasn't paying attention, and I was like, oh, I'll give this a go, and I heard it. I like I Road. It's really solid stuff on $20 spin. Came out in July. I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But
this is the American Laceration, death metal,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe they're kind of maybe somewhat death thrash. There's a bit. They kind of sort of in between the two.
I haven't heard the new one, but I was a big fan of the last one.
Were you?
Yeah, new one, fantastic.
I didn't even know about this until Billy mentioned it. I was like, oh, okay. And I like it, and I've been spinning it quite a bit. Really solid stuff. Number 13, I'm going to Master. And this is a band that I really love. They released Saints Dispelled this year, back on January 19th on Hammerheart Records. So it's beginning of the year. So a lot of people may have forgotten about this album. They're 15 albums in, and Paul Speckman doesn't lose a beat. This guy's a legend. I totally love it. Like, it's great death thrash. You won't go wrong. It may not be one of their better records, but it's solid. I'll give it this much. It's solid in the same way as we'll say Deicide is. So it's, you know, it's you get what you get with Master. So you can't go wrong with that band. Number 12, I put Saxon on my list as well. Hellfire and Damnation. Again, this was released back in January, so yeah. I'm glad people are remembering it. Released on Silver Lining Music. It is their 25th album. I'm not including those 2 inspiration albums, so 25 is what I counted. They're still going strong. I think this album is equally as good as Battering Ram, Thunderbolt, and Carpe Diem. Biff is a legend. There's no question about that. I remember I interviewed Biff about 10 years ago, and Biff was great. Like, the guy was on point for every question I threw at him. He's a really good guy. But the band is going strong. This album is really killer. You won't, if you pick it up, you won't be disappointed. At least I don't think. Number 11, I'm going with a band called Engulf. The album is called The Dying Planet Weeps. Again, this came out like in January on Everlasting Spew Records, a label that I'm really getting into because they're putting out a lot of really kind of experimental death metal bands that are, a bit more on the experimental side, which I like, which I'm really into that kind of music. This is a one-man project by a guy named Hal. Now, if I can pronounce his last name, it's Microtosis. So he's Greek, obviously. He's a one-man project. He does the vocals, he writes the lyrics, he does the music and the drums, the whole works. It's a really good album. I really, really liked it. I'm hoping for more. I think this is their first album. They've had three. He's released 3 EPs previously, but look them up too. They're pretty solid stuff. I love the album cover is really, really good. That caught my eye when I first saw it. And I put number 10. I have Deicide, Banished by Sin. This came out released April 26 on Raining my tongue tied here. Raining Phoenix Music. I picked this album for one reason, and that's because of Taylor Nordberg, who I absolutely love. I think he's brought a fresh perspective to the band with his guitar playing. He's in The Absence, he's in Rib Spreader, in Human Condition. I've always been a big fan of The Absence, and I love his work. So I love the kind of bit more of a thrashier element to this album, I find, for me. I did see them when they came to Toronto earlier, and it was a good show. It was a really, really good show. So that's where I slapped my number 10.
Okay. And I think on that show you went with some pretty cool people too.
I did. I absolutely, Mr. Billy and Kim and Jason. Yeah, we had a good time. It was a fun show.
It was. Yeah.
It was a really, really good show. Luckily, it wasn't like jam-packed like Blood Incantation, where you couldn't even breathe or sneeze.
Oh, I heard about that.
Anything.
Yeah.
It was insane, absolutely insane. But yeah, this was a really, really good show. I had a good time, total good time. Okay,
Good
so
list,
moving to the next round of people's favorites. Kim, go for it. Lead us off.
All right. Okay, let's get back to it. So my number 9 is a band called Doetsmagerd, which totally butchered that, but I believe I know it's kind of like a sister band to Dotheimsgard, which is like a Norwegian extreme metal band.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they just like took a bunch of mushrooms and jammed out and were like, this is really cool, but we can't release it as Dotheimsgard, so we're going to call it something very similar and put it out there. What a trip this album is. It's like truly an art form. It reminds me of, in the 90s when people were not afraid to just experiment and do weird shit and, cross boundaries and
in extreme ways.
Start new jobs. Yeah, in extreme ways. Yeah. I think this album gives me like Silencer vibes, if you know who Silencer is, which is just,
I've heard of him.
Like really crazy extreme, black metal, early Burzum. I don't know. I think my list this year is really inspired by, a lot of the things I did this year. I went to a lot of big European black metal festivals. I saw a lot of brand new bands I'd never seen before. I think just because of, COVID, inflation, things being really rough for touring, we're starting to see a lot of the same bands over and over, especially here in Canada, which is a shame. And, whenever I go to Europe, it's just like this cavalcade of like new music, new bands, new experiences, stuff to get into. So there's a lot of things on my list that, is a little out there and a little different for that reason. So yeah, this was a really interesting album, and I give them kudos for doing something so cool and different. Number 8 is Hamford. So this is actually the singer for Jotun.
Okay.
And I don't know which band came first. I think it's Hamford.
Yeah, he was in Hamford prior to Jotun.
Yeah, and so this band is from the Faroe Islands, which is where he is from, and it's a doom band. And Billy, I mean, his vocals, they're just like so powerful, and they just give you goosebumps. And imagine that in like a doom band where it's like the epitome of like despair, you know, like they just really capture that feeling of like despair. And it's a great album. It's something that I just got into this year, along with Jotun.
Cool.
Number 7, Whoredom Rife. Whoredom Rife is a band I saw at Beyond the Gates. Really cool black metal band. I got to photograph them. They put on such a great show. I loved it so much. I went home, started listening to this album, fell in love with it. They got great stage presence, good costumes, good vibes, cool riffs, high energy. Number 6, From the Vastland, Tenebria Shadow. From the Vastland
that's wicked. You guys, Jason, your review got me. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm trying to buy the album actually, but with the mail strike and that, it's hard to go direct. So I'm trying to get it off of Amazon, but it's not available yet.
If you want to wait, Sina's a good friend of ours. So when we go to Norway this summer,
yeah.
Ooh, nice.
Probably get one from him.
Hook up.
Yeah.
Hook up.
Yeah. Maybe a signed copy.
That'd be cool, Jim.
Yeah.
From the Vastland is a band that's really close to my heart because, you know, just watched I think I heard about them the first time by watching the documentary Black Hearts. And it's about like these 3 bands that are trying to get to Inferno Festival in Norway, and From the Vastland, Sina, you know, trying to get out of a bad situation in his home country and just loving to play black metal, but, you know, it being dangerous to do so. And his journey to get to Norway to play Inferno Festival. And I just fell in love with that story. And he ended up doing it, and he stayed in Norway. He was sponsored to stay and live and play his black metal. And, you know, Jason and I have since become friends with him. And this album, I think Bandcamp says it best: vicious, dark, and haunting. These songs are up. Yeah, it's Persian demons, and it's dark and it's evil, and it's got some old school true black metal vibes. Tenebria Shadow is a song I want to call out for that reason exactly. And can we just talk about how Sina's album covers are so cool? I love them. They're the best. Yeah, so From the Vastland, good album.
Ooh.
Number 5, maybe I am the one that has this lowest on the list, but Blood Incantation, Absolute Elsewell. I fucking love this album.
5?
What? Get her out of here.
I know, right? I know.
Someone wire that album into her brain. We'll get it up to
No,
number
it's
1.
just that there are reasons. It was tough, man. It was tough. So Blood Incantation, Absolute Elsewhere. I'm a sucker for anyone that, like, you know, goes outside the box, like just does something different, you know. Just is like, I'm not gonna follow the same shit. I'm not afraid. I'm just like, I love this shit and I want you to love it too, and this is what I'm gonna do. So I mean, mad respect for this band. Yeah, I'm sad that we didn't catch them on this tour, because I think listening to that album live would have been super cool. But I think just like, yeah, doing it at Lee's Palace like a sardine didn't sound like a good time, but yeah, great album. It's cool to just throw that on and it takes you for a ride, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Yeah.
And Kim, from that From the Vastland, I think my favorite song is Lucifer's Eye, I believe it's called. That is that whole album. When I watched your interview, Jason, and I was just like, every time you guys post stuff, I'm checking it out because I gotta check it out. And this just, I mean, I played it.
Hate everything.
Played it again. I mean, I just like, holy geez. And then I went searching for it. So thanks for doing that, because that really, it's a great album.
And he has quite a catalog of albums, so you got a lot to tackle there. Yeah.
He's a hard worker.
He is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and Jason, over to you.
All right, number 9, bringing some Norway into things again, Dark Throne. Obviously a legendary Norwegian black metal band who we can't call black metal anymore. I mean, they have undertones of black metal, but they're essentially a classic traditional metal band now. And their album, It Beckons Us All. So yeah, if you want to check out what they're doing these days, it's highly recommended. I want to say it's very 70s influenced, 80s influenced, a lot of Celtic Frost vibes,
Yeah.
a lot of new wave of British heavy metal vibes to it.
I have something
Really,
to say.
yeah.
I think when that first single came out and you and I were listening to it somewhere, I was like getting like grunge vibes. It was like grunge.
Yeah.
It was like,
I would say that like it does have that grittiness to it, right? That grunge
Yeah.
had, and just something about it. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they were intentionally doing that, but I can definitely make the connection there for sure. So good album if you're into traditional metal and anything that entails with a little bit of black metal. Number 8 is Wormed. Wormed, Wormed. This is a brutal tech death band.
wait, they put an album out this year?
They did their first one since 2016.
What? I
Yeah,
remember
so
the
they,
last one was so good.
yeah, their first album since 2016's Kriegschuh. This one's
Oh.
called Omegon. It's a really awesome, brutal death metal band with a lot of technical aspects to it, but not overly technical. Not technical just for the sake of being technical. The technical elements just work really, really, really well. But it is first and foremost kind of a brutal death metal album. And it might appeal to you, Ken, because each album is like it's sci-fi.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Very
ask,
horror.
is it
Yeah.
sci-fi like the last one?
Yeah, it's sci-fi horror
Yeah.
based around this omnipresent fucking universal character called Kriegschuh. It has some of the Thing vibes to it. It's a really really cool album.
I'll give it a spin.
Yeah. Number 7 is a band called Brodekin. They're out of the US and their album Harbinger of War. Again, this is a death metal album, more on the brutal side of death metal. These are older guys. They've been around for a long, long time. They're not as popular as bands like Suffocation or some of the bigger kind of brutal death metal albums. And this is their first album in 20 years. So back 20 years ago, they were on the rise, doing things on the same vein as Suffocation, Dying Fetus, bands of that nature. But they had a lot of tragedy befall them. They're two brothers. Their parents both died in succession. Their aunts and uncles, they said just family member after family member ended up dying, which they just stepped away from death metal completely to take care of family business. And then 20 years later, they released this album called Harbinger of War. Now, Brodequin, the name is kind of a cool name because it's a medieval torture device, and all their albums are kind of they're all themed around different torture devices from the medieval times. But it's really smart stuff too. Like these guys are really, really smart. They don't do it in kind of like just a silly, sick way. They do it in a really, really, really cool way. So check these guys out if you want to know what some originators of the heavier side of death metal were doing back in the day. And yeah, it's very cool. Number 6 from the Vastland. Can't say much more about that. Just really, really, really cool second wave inspired Norwegian black metal. They're one of the only other bands, apart from one that we'll talk about later, that are carrying the torch for second wave of Norwegian black metal strong these days. So congrats to Sina for doing that. And he's not even from Norway, but he's definitely found his niche there. And number 5 is Defeated Sanity. Kim already touched on it. Their Chronicles of Lunacy album. They kind of lost me with their last couple of albums because they went a bit too technical, and I don't like it when brutal death metal bands go too technical. So this one is much more in line with their 2010 album Chapters of Repugnance, which is very Suffocation-inspired death metal. So if you like your 90s, mid to late 90s brutal death metal, then you'll love this new Defeated Sanity album. And
Cool.
Jason,
Yeah.
I've got a
All right.
question for you. So with Norwegian like black metal, like I mean, I'm not like I don't know a lot about it at all. Are they like really acceptance of other people, like other bands from other countries doing black metal, or like how accepted is that band in Norway? Really, really well, and like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cena had a lot of support from
Oh,
a
cool.
lot of the originators
Well,
of the
yeah, like
Norwegian
he's
black metal.
just
And
does he
the
have, like,
members of his band are actually
he's got like ex-Gorgoroth in his band.
That's
and
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I read
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
because he's a one-man band, but he hires session
Yeah.
musicians, and they're all made up of guys that have been in the scene for a long time, like Kim said. So
And he has
yeah,
such a big
super accepted.
discography. I mean, he has a lot of albums. So, I mean, you know, yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's like I mean, just like anything, it depends on the person. Like everybody
Yeah.
has a different opinion. And I think, like Jason said, we're going to maybe touch on this a little bit later, but you know, there's like the true Norwegian black metal, like,
Yeah.
and you know, but
Well,
once you start,
there are gatekeepers, right, Kim?
Right, right.
As we would call
True.
them.
there
Yeah.
are, and like, I mean, it's the same as, you know, elitist, old school death metal people.
True,
It's the
true.
same
Yeah.
shit. It's the
Yeah.
same shit, you know.
Or
and
Thrashcast guys.
Yeah.
That's true.
yeah, I mean,
Those
I
old
think
guys.
it all really boils down to when you were born. I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
yeah, for
Fair
sure.
enough. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, Jim, your turn.
Yeah. So I've got kind of an interesting one. Stormborn.
Oh, yeah.
This album's called Zenith, an English band from England. The second studio album. This is a melodic power metal, heavy metal band. I absolutely love them. They're fairly new. It was funny because this album came out on April 26th. I got text from, I think Billy sent me a text in the morning. Have you checked these guys out? Ken did. And then my friend in Scotland had been texting me all morning. Jimmy, this dropped. You got to check it out. You got to check it out. And I mean, just a phenomenal band. They're tour a lot, obviously, in Europe, especially in the UK. I think they're either on tour or they were on tour. I think they're going on tour with Luthero is going over there, which is kind of cool. You know, Toronto band heading over there. Just a really, really good, you know, Death Incarnation, a wicked song on it. I absolutely love it. It's just an amazing, amazing album. And I think, you know, there's going to be a pretty bright future for these guys. So definitely nice to have a bit more of a newer band on there. My number 8, head back to death metal. I mean, here I am for Thrashcast, but I'm going to go with some Gatecreeper.
Woo,
Nice.
nice.
You know, I mean, I love the vocals on this album. Phenomenal. The song Flesh Habit is amazing. And just, I mean, could be, I mean, maybe the song name could be changed a little bit and maybe it not be death metal. It could be a top 40 band. This is so good. I mean, it's just awesome. Came out in May. This is their 3rd release. And just really, really love these guys.
When you say top 40, like just top 40 of anything?
I'm talking,
Yeah.
this could be a pop
You know-
album. I mean,
you know what's
maybe
funny
change
about that?
Flesh Habit to Skin, you know, I don't know, Skin Cream or something.
You guys know who Post Malone is, obviously, right?
Yeah.
That's his favorite death metal band.
Jason's
Really?
number 1 album
Yeah.
this year.
Oh, wow.
Post
I was a
Malone.
big Post Malone fan. I don't like what he's doing now, the
No.
country stuff, but yeah, he goes to see them all the time. He wears Gatecreeper shirts on tour.
Oh, that's cool.
The band comes and sees Post Malone and vice versa. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. Like it has
Yeah.
a bit more
I guess
mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting because I think if you were to get it, I mean, you know, my favorite death metal band of all time is Obituary. But like you jump into, if you want to give somebody some death metal to kind of ease them into it, this is definitely an album for it. It's a good, I mean, still got some brutal parts to it, but the vocalist is just real. It's just such a good vocal death metal album. I love it. And it's catchy. It's got kind of an earworms to it, which, you know, and as you said, Jason, earlier, bit of a toe tapper kind of thing. It's just kind of breaking the mold a little bit. I think it's really cool.
Cool.
My number 7's a kind of slowing things down a little bit, but this was as high as my number 1, but over the months have slowed down, fallen back a bit. But North Sea Echoes, really good, terrible things. This is the Jim Mathios and Ray Alder release that they did together from Fate's Warning.
You
They
reviewed this
also-
one, didn't you?
Yeah, I think Ray
Yeah.
Elder he's got a couple of solo albums out, and I think Billy, you reviewed one last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love Jim and Ray's music. I love Fate's Warning. I was showing off all my old school cassettes, and I think I had Awaken the Guardian in there. This came out in February, and it's very chill. It's just very a quiet album. It's not heavy, but it's got really good writing, and just, I mean, the vocals on it are phenomenal. I really like it. It's a little bit out of left field, and it's a little bit different than Ray's other solo albums. So just a really good album, and it really flew under the radar, which kind of sucks. But I really like it.
Yeah, I missed that one. I got to check that out.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna love it, man. It's like that. I mean, the first 6 songs on it, I get to the 6th song, and then I want to hear the first. I gotta get, like, I've listened to the whole thing over and over again, but I want to go back to the first, like, Flowers and Decay and Open Book. Wicked tracks. Really good. Really good album. My number 6, I gotta go with this. I know it got a kind of a lot of hate online, but Bruce Dickinson, the Mandrake project. I mean, I've got his singles. I got the comic book 7-inch album, which I didn't open, which still wonder. It's been here for a year and I haven't opened it yet because I don't know. I don't know why I don't want to open it. It's like all my Star Wars crap behind me. I don't want to open it. And but anyways, love this album. Actually, on my, I obviously use Apple Music as well as all my physical copies I listen to. This was what song is it here? Shadow of the Gods was my number 1 played song. And this was in my top 5 bands or top 5 albums I listened to this year. I love this album. It's a little bit different than some of the other stuff he's put out. It's not as, he got a lot of pushback that it wasn't as heavy. It wasn't as Iron Maiden-ish, but I think it's got touches of, I mean, there's an Iron Maiden song redone on it. Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson. So it's kind of cool. Gus G plays on it. And it's just a phenomenal album. You got Roy Z on here. You got so good musicianship, and it's a well done album. And I think it's just it takes so many. It's traditional metal mixed with a little symphonic metal, some hard rock, some really good heavy metal, and I think we're missing that in today's world for sure. So
I'm disappointed that I haven't
Sorry?
listened to that. I'm disappointed that I have not listened to that yet.
Oh, it's really cool. Listen to Shadow of the Gods. It's a little slow, but I like his vocals in it. It's got some operatic parts to it, and then it speeds. It's just a really good album. Cool. I really like it, and I love Bruce Dickinson's solo stuff just as much as Iron Maiden. Accident of Birth, I think, what was the last album they did? This would have been I think there was 20 years in between his last album.
Chemical Wedding.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was it Tyranny of Souls 20 years, I think.
Oh yeah, Chemical Wedding, and then
Chemical Wedding is a great album, but 20 years in between. So what are we stopping at here? 6 guys?
Or 5?
I think I went to 5.
Okay, I'll go to 5.
Oh, I did too. Damn.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's what I want to do. So my number 5, going traditional again. Went with Judas Priest, Invincible Shield.
The Masters.
I mean, like, I gotta admit, this is in the top half of their catalog for me. It's their newest album. Obviously, it's amazing. I remember ordering it online from their website months and months. Like, I think I ordered it in 2023, and it just I absolutely love it. Crown of Horns, wicked song, The Serpent and the King. What I like about it, what I love about physical copies, back when we were all young, going to the record store and we were waiting for our favorite albums to drop. This one here, I mean, they were pretty smart. I think it's got like 11 tracks on it. So they started October 13th of 23. Boom, release Panic Attack. November 17th, 23. Boom, Trial by Fire. January 19th, boom, Crown of Horns. And then The Serpent and the King on February 22nd. And what I like about that is it just kept this album in the news and top of mind for so many months, and then bam, in March 6th, they released the album. I think it came out just before the Mandrake project. So it's almost like these two big traditional metal forces decided to release their album a week apart and just kind of go for it separately. I just think it's really cool that they do that. So those are my picks.
Cool. All right.
Great. One of the greatest bands of all time.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Kim, I heard you like Painkiller, maybe.
A little bit.
We missed you on that one.
I know.
But that's all right. Jason was great filling in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he did an okay job.
Wow, he's good job.
Thank you, Jason.
No problem.
All right, Billy, you're next.
Yeah, so excuse me. So number 9, so Ken, you kind of started out by saying not a lot of thrash, but I think it is interesting. The best thrash albums are really comeback thrash albums, bands that have been away. So you mentioned Morbid Saint. I think, Ken, you and I are going to have one still coming up. I won't reveal it. But for me, my number 9 is Nasty Savage.
Yeah, good choice.
It just totally took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting maybe a whole lot, but just fantastic. I mean, Nasty Ron, he's like the only original member left, but the band, it's filled with like fantastic musicians in the band. I mean, the riff work is just outstanding. You get classic Nasty Savage, and all those weird quirks that the band's known for from the old days. They didn't try to make the sound modern. Just some great songwriting, and I love the song "Witch's Sabbath." I know that's probably the popular one, but like Jimmy said, my favorite band is Obituary. So when you get a song that is very much in the Merciful Fate vein, but then you got John Tardy sharing vocal duties with Nasty Ron. And then you got, of course, the other Tardy brother behind the drum kit.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be a great song, Donald doing drums. So yeah, and if the band is listening, you guys got to know nobody could find this album. I have like all the record stores I work with who do all my specialty metal vinyl orders. Nobody could even find this thing on the ordering system. So sadly, I have a hard copy, but everybody I know is looking for this album. It's like that Hyrax. They released an EP this year. Nobody could find it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Like, it makes no sense. So yeah, somebody's got to make that more readily available. My number 8, I'm going back to death metal. Molder, Catastrophic, Reconfiguration. That's always a mouthful for me to say. Their third album, one of my favorites. The artwork is killer. Like, I didn't.
That covers.
I don't know why I didn't pick out my my covers for it to show, but I didn't. But this is really like old school death metal, another band that sort of a modern band that pays tribute. So really, we're talking Autopsy in a big way, bits of Obituary mixed in. It gets into sleazy death metal territory. Like, every time I read something about the band, they compare Aaron, the vocalist, to a very famous death metal singer, Martin Van Druen, and I could definitely see that. He definitely sounds like that. So yeah, I mean, it's not 100% original, but what they do, they execute it very well. So
what's the name of the album, Billy?
It's a mouthful. Catastrophic Reconfiguration.
Yeah.
And the artwork is just arguably one of the best of the year.
Yeah. I would agree.
You've sold me on this already.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I need to listen to it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then Yeah, I'm all over the board here in this run of 5. So now I'm going back. Jimmy stole my thunder on this one. That's okay. Judas Priest, Invisible Shield. I mean, that's 2 albums in a row, Firepower and this album, that are just incredible. I mean, you got Halford, who's in his 70s. He's still ripping it up on the album. Richie Faulkner is like totally fitting in. The production is fantastic. It's like 50 years, and they're releasing very relevant, cool new metal, right? That's amazing. It's going to be a sad day when we never have a new Judas Priest album again.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Number 6 is maybe a slightly less known, but it's climbing up my list. It's a band called Octoploid. Beyond the Aeons. So this is what you get if you cross Amon Amarth, 70s prog rock, psychedelic music, and Amorphous. So this is actually the side
Interesting.
band. Yeah, so this is the side band.
So what's the Amon Amarth part? Is it like the Nordic themes, or
no, it's the melodic death metal, I'd say.
The melodic death metal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's a side band from the bass player, Ollie from Amorphous. It's their first album, but like Blood Incantation is getting all the kudos for doing the 70s prog and psychedelic crossover. This album came out before and they do the same thing. So maybe not to quite the same extent, but it's just very well crafted songwriting. Probably my biggest surprise album of the year, and I'm not seeing it anywhere, which I just don't get, given everybody loves Blood Incantation.
What label?
Actually, I don't know what label, to be honest. This is another one I have on order that I had to get from the US, and it's lost in the damn postal strike. Yeah, but it came out quite a bit. I'd say mid-year, early to mid-year. It was released. I've been listening to it for a while. But definitely, if you're an Amorphous fan, then you're going to like this for sure. And then number 5, so I mentioned it. This is the other big thrash comeback, Atrophy Asylum. Just fantastic, classic 80s thrash, I guess 1992. If you like their Socialized Hate and Violent by Nature, they haven't drastically changed their style. I mean, obviously, Brian Zimmerman, he still sounds fantastic. He's got a new band around him, but it seems to have reinvigorated him. And not a weak song on the album, in my view, and another contender for album artwork of the year, I think. But yeah, if you like old Atrophy or classic thrash, this one's a must listen to as well. That's my number 5.
Nice.
All right. Okay, so I'll count down my next 5. Number 9, I'm going with the Suicidal Angels, Profane Prayer, which came out on March 1st. Nuclear Blast. One of my favorite, I guess, more current day thrash bands. They're from Greece. This is like their 8th release, which is hard to believe. They've been around for a little bit. The covers by Repka. Repka's done their last 6 album covers. This one's great. I love it. It's vicious. It's aggressive. It's got lots of speed, tons of melodic passages. Yeah, if you're into this kind of really like dark thrash, this would be the band for you. I think all the covers that they've done on this band have been amazing. Ed's did a really, really good job on the covers, but it's one of my favorites. Number 8, I'm again like both Billy and Jim. I have Judas Priest, Invincible Shield. What more can you say about it? Billy said it all. So did you, Jim. Great album. I still think I prefer the last album a little bit more than this one. But you can't go wrong with either the last and this album. It's fantastic. I agree with Jimmy. Like they know how to promote music and how to keep it going for like a couple months, even before the album came out. And when the album came out, everyone was like rushing to get that thing.
Yeah.
So, and I remember tons of people talking about it. But yeah, it's a good album. Number 7, I'm going with a band named Full of Hell. They released an album called Coagulated Bliss. It came out April 26th on Closed Casket Activities. This is like really hard to describe. It's like grindcore. It's like power violence. It's like death. It's got noise rock. It's
Didn't
a very
they toured
eclectic.
with Dying Fetus early in the
What's-
year,
what's
right?
that?
Didn't they tour with Dying Fetus?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I think I caught them. Yeah, they were different. They were something different. It was cool.
Yeah, it's almost like I describe them like aborted meets unsane at times. There's just, yeah, it's a really, really good album. I really like this album. I never knew anything about them until I actually reviewed the album, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. But I found it quite, I listened to it off and on. It's really good. Number 6, I have Molder as well. What can you say about this album? Released November 8th, Prosthetic Records. It's like death thrash. There's a lot there is a lot of early 90s death metal in it. They kind of remind me of Pestilence and Asphyx. The riffs are razor sharp. It's on point. And yeah, that album cover, I agree with Billy. It's like probably the best album cover of the year. It caught my eye, and it's like, wow, it's amazing. But it's a band worth checking out. You should check it out. And like Billy, yeah, he mentioned the comeback album, Atrophy. Really, the album Asylum released on March 15th on Massacre Records. A great comeback record. Brian's great in this. He sounds fresh, invigorated. I love his lyrics. The one thing I like about this, and I had a chance to interview Brian earlier in the year, I mentioned the lyrics, and he went in depth about lyrics and what was going on in the States at the time. So I really appreciated his, I guess his exploration of politics and other things going on in the United States. But it's a great album, and yeah, that album cover with the Jester, whoo, you cannot go wrong with that. So that's
sounds like a Noise on the Canvas column.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it could definitely go there. I actually have another idea for Noise on the Canvas that I've been writing for like 2 months. I got
nice.
To it. You'll like it. It's interesting. All right, so that's the end of that round, and we're getting closer to the last few. We'll go back to Kim. So you'll be doing like what, 4-2-2?
4-3-2. So 3 more. Mm-hmm. All right. So my number 4 is a band called Inquisition, and the album is called Veneration of Medieval Mysticism and Cosmological Violence. And if that wasn't a good enough hint for you, these guys are cosmic black metal, which I think is my favorite genre of all time. You can just feel the Satanism all over this, like 70s satanic panic. They got the keyboards, candles, sacrifices, all those things. It's very dark. It's very cool. I just love it. Anything these guys do.
How's the vocals on it, Kim? Because he's kind of he sounds like a frog at times with that kind of
yeah.
Is it still the same?
It's unique. Yeah. It's not like anything you've ever heard. No. And it works. It really feels like something that was pulled out of the pits of hell,
Okay. Yeah.
He's talked about that vocal style before and how he came up with it. It's more of a whisper style.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, like a gurgly whisper.
Yeah.
That's like he's
funny
because
I actually, but you mentioned that, Kim. I was just checking my my album list. I actually have something from them. Is this an album or Ominous Doctrines of the Perpetual Mystical Macrocosm? I actually like that.
This is what their album names, their song names. It's all just like
I like it.
Well, you like black metal then, Billy?
There you go.
From 2011. I have that. I like it.
I listen to this a lot. I just love it. I'm a big fan of like, the what they do with the keyboards and things like that. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a, like, that movie Mandy. I feel like I'm just like in that movie like when I listen to this stuff. Yeah. It's cool. Good. It's good. And shout out to Metal Threat Festival just outside of Chicago, I think, which is going to bring Inquisition to play live next year in 2025, which I think is pretty much unheard of. So
this summer.
That's part of my bucket list for sure. I need I need to be there. I will be there.
Cool.
Number 3 is Borknagar, the album Fall.
Yes.
This is an easy win for me. Borknagar, one of my favorite bands of all time. You know, after my first trip to Norway, every time I came home, I listened to Borknagar. I was like in Norway. It's snowy mountains. It's being in nature. It's, you know, primordial gods and mythology and just, you know, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Vortex, obviously, you know, one of the greatest metal vocalists of all time, and their song themes and whatnot really speak to me. So yeah, that was my number 3. My number 2, Jotun, the album Kinship. This was almost my number 1 until I realized that I got into this band this year. I got into them because I watched an episode of Boris T. Shout out to Boris T, my new favorite, you know, metal podcast.
Yeah.
And they went to Midgard's Blood and Jotun was playing. So he had like the short clip and he's like, and this is Jotun playing on stage. So I was like, oh, I gotta check these guys out. They had like white cloaks and stuff. So I listened to, they just released a single Mistland and I listened to it and I was like, whoa, this is like definitely Borknagar vibes. Kind of proggy, kind of black metal, kind of, you know, all about nature and stuff like that, which I'm really into. So I super got into them. And it's probably my most played band this year. But I realized that the majority of the songs that I was like playing over and over and over again were from the first album. So I think it didn't make my number 1. At first I was like number one. And then I realized, I actually like the first album better than the second album if I had to choose. So they ended up with my number 2, but great band. I'm so glad I found them. I think they're really going to take off. I feel like we're going to see them at a lot of festivals next year and hopefully in Canada. We'll see. But yeah, Jotun. And I'll stop right there because that's my number 2.
Nice. And you're wearing the Jotun shirt as well.
And I am wearing the Jotun shirt that I got for my birthday. Thank you.
I love that logo. That logo is so awesome.
Yeah.
It's so good, right?
Yeah, that logo is amazing. I like that logo a lot. Cool.
They just got announced for walk-in this year too.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, Billy, you're so lucky.
Billy had seen them on 70,000 tons, but he didn't know
I
who they were.
didn't know. I thought that was like hardcore black metal for some reason. Just an inappropriate judgment on my part.
They're super prog. Like they're very prog.
That one track, I can't remember the name of it, but it's totally black metal.
There's little bits
Twilight
of
is
it.
super black metal. Yeah. They got a few like that, but
the clean vocals break it up for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'm next.
You're next.
All right. So number 4 is Borknagar. Fall. Kim pretty much said it all. Been one of my favorite bands of all time. This still doesn't touch my favorite album by them, which is Winter Thrice from 2014.
Winter Thrice is, you like Winter Thrice better than Erd?
Yeah.
You gave Erd a 10 out of 10.
I did. I still think that way, but I don't know. I really love the title track for that album, Winter Thrice, because it has the singer from Oliver in it, and it just, for that reason alone, I love that. But I love this album. This album's really cool. I had the chance to interview what's his name, Kim?
The guitarist, the guy that writes all the music.
Yeah. I interviewed him earlier in the year about this album, and he had a lot of really great insight about the album. Just going to his cabin up on the top of a Norwegian mountain and just sitting there.
Oyston,
yes. And writing the album up in his cabin on top of a mountain. And it really feels like that when you listen to it. So, amazing album. And one of the bands with, I think, 3 of the best singers of all time, clean vocal singers. So you have Vortex, you have, I can't remember all their names now. Lars Nedlund.
Lars, yeah.
And then there's one other guy who does clean vocals. I can't remember his name, but anyways, they're super good.
Brain farts.
Yeah. Number 3 is Jotun, Kinship. Again, thanks to Kim for finding these guys. and then passing that down to me and then along to Billy. Such an amazing album. I agree with Kim that it's not quite as good as the first one for me. It's a little more refined around the edges. It's an easier listen than the first one, I would say, but the first one just has a lot. As Billy mentioned earlier, something to me where he said, there's just something you can always grab onto in every song. And I think the last album has that a little bit more. There are more moments that you can grab because I think they're doing more. This one kind of refines everything, and those grabby moments are a little less few and far between, but when you do grab them, or when they do grab you, they grab you hard on this album. So
yeah,
it's
I
a great
find
album.
that like, you know, every time they were putting out one song at a time, and they put out quite a few songs before this album came out. And the first time I would listen to it, I would be like, oh, it's not as good as the last song. And then I would listen again, and I would listen again. I'd be like, no, this is their best song. Like,
Yeah,
it takes
yeah.
a couple of listens, and then once
Yeah.
you get it, it's like, yeah, this is like the best thing they've ever done. And then the next song comes out, and the same thing happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think John is probably one of the best clean vocalists in metal
He
today.
definitely rivals Vortex in my mind,
Oh,
you know?
like I think he transcends any genre. Like it's just you can put him in any metal band and he would fit. You could put him in Maiden,
Yeah.
you could put him in Priest, you could put him, I don't mind, maybe not Priest, but you know what I mean? Like the guy has just got such a well-rounded voice. At
And
times he
guys,
reminds me of Roy Khan of Camelot, and he's one of my favorite clean vocalists of all time. And I do see some similarities. Sorry, Kim, you were saying?
I know. I was just gonna say, like Billy, like if you're really into it for the vocals, you should listen to him for
Yes. Yeah. For
because
sure.
he's the vocalist on that too. It's
Yeah.
different music style, but like it grabs you the same. You know,
Yeah,
like
and
it really tugs on you.
he does the death growls and the clean on Hanford as well.
Cool.
And then my number 2 is Blood Incantation. Now, I just got to say, I was never really a Blood Incantation fan before this. I was from the camp that was like, oh man, they're posers, they're hipster death metal. I for some reason I always got that vibe from them, and I don't know what it was. But I think these guys are the real deal now. Like when you hear them talk about their influences, and both in death metal and in progressive rock, they just fucking love that shit in death metal, and they love the progressive rock. Like they love it more than I think they love life. And then they combine those two things together in such a incredible, like
They
mind-blowing
remind me of me
way.
and my friends back when we were 20 and we just smoked pot and like learned about aliens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good way to sum it up. But the progressive stuff is just like if you like Tangerine Dream, you like Yes, you like any of those bands from the 70s, they really channel that to even Pink Floyd. They
Yeah, big
really,
time Pink
really,
Floyd.
really channel that incredibly well. And they also have some guests on it. The keyboardist from Tangerine Dream is on the album.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really love about this album is that they don't neglect the death metal parts. Like their favorite death metal band of all time is late 80s, early 90s Morbid Angel.
Yeah.
And you can just absolutely hear that. It's dripping with that. And then on the other side, when I talked to Isaac Falk, the drummer from this, one of the questions I put to him is, how do you please the death metal people who love you? And how do you please, or how do you reach out to those progressive rock people that have never heard of death metal, but would love this album? And so after we talked, I deep dive in YouTube after this album came out, and I'm a big fan of reactions to albums. So I just put in reactions by old progressive rock guys to Blood Incantation, where they sit down and listen to this album. And there's many of them out there.
And of course, that's a thing.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And many of them are in their 60s and 70s, and they've never heard death metal, but they love this album, and they can't explain why. And they go, that Cookie Monster vocals, I would never give that a chance before, but it just works so well in here. So what they've ended up doing is brought these old progressive rock guys into the realm of death metal, and they're now, exploring death metal and like holy shit, this is not too far off the progressive rock that I love. Like it's out there like progressive rock is. And they bring both those things together. And so kudos to them for being able to transcend genres and pull those type of people into death metal, and then also pull the death metal people into progressive rock if they weren't already there previously.
And like they pulled out, like they found some really old instruments from like the 70s that they were like, we need these in order to record this album.
Yeah.
And they
That's
tracked them
why-
down, they found them. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, they just released a making of album, or sorry, a short film about making this album, and they went to Berlin.
What's that? That's cool.
Yeah, they went to Berlin and they went to this old school studio where Tangerine Dream and many of these obscure like progressive rock bands, krautrock, progressive bands from the 70s and 80s recorded, and they recorded the entirety of the album there. So yeah, as Kim said, all those instruments and old cabinets and old like keyboards and gear from the 70s, they were able to incorporate that and get a really kind of truly genuine sound on this album.
Well, recording analog would make sense, right?
Yeah, recording
So that
analog
would
as well.
make the most sense. So
Yep, and that's it for me.
cool. Okay, Jimmy, it's up to you.
Cool. So my number 4, heading into some more death metal, 200 Stabwounds.
Yeah.
My God. I mean, you
Yeah.
want brutality at its best, pick up this
Yep.
album. This great album. I mean, I love their first album, but this is just another phenomenal follow-up release. And I mean, this is something that like I find it really catchy in some parts, and really, really like it. I mean, Ride the Flatline, friggin' amazing song, and Defiled Gestation. I mean, it's like a love song when you think about it, but no, it's just an amazing band, amazing album. And I love the fact that on all the hard heavy metal extreme music charts and rock, even I think some of the more heavier rock charts, this charted well in almost every country. So I mean, people are saying, death metal, blah blah blah, whatever. This, I mean, it's definitely popular nowadays, and I think this is a testament to it. Great album. My number 3, going back to some traditional stuff, Warlord.
Cool.
My God, I mean, I love the old Warlord, like their first couple albums way back when. I think I have them on cassette. I gotta still hunt them down. But they've brought the band back. They've got a lot of new members. They only have one original member, Mark Sonder, who's the drummer, and Giles Lavery, who's now the singer, has kind of brought this to life. They made some of these songs were made up of parts that were left over from when they disbanded, when they've lost some members in that, and they were able to use a lot of that and bring it sort of up to date. But what's neat about it is they've got that, and they also brought out even another album this year. This one's called From the Ashes to Archives. So it's got some of the original songs on it from the original lead singer, and then Giles singing half the album, kind of brought up to date. So I really hope they do continue. I think it's been well received, and this is a high roller record, so these things are pretty pricey, but I gotta be honest, what a way to get your CD. You got a sleeve, comes with a poster, the CD.
Nice.
I mean, it was
So
like,
old
I
school.
think the set me back $41, but I mean, what an amazing disc. And
Is that what a CD costs these days?
no,
Wow.
well, no,
No.
they're getting up there. But this one here, I've been waiting for it to drop, and I just got sick and tired of waiting. I just pulled the trigger on it, but they kind of
cool
give you a little
album
bit
cover.
extra.
Yeah.
She's pricey. What else do I got here? My number 3. Sorry, that was my number 3. My number 2. Jason and Kim, you guys sold me on this way back when. This has been it's been my number 1. It's been my number 1.
The plan is working.
And it's my number 2. I love this album. My wife likes this album. It's interesting because I don't even know, like, I went back and I've got...
Is your wife into metal?
Sorry?
Is your wife into metal?
Yeah, she's more into, like, right now she's more into a lot of country, so I gotta listen to that. But she came from like the LA Guns, stuff like that. We used to go to the shows like Metallica. She's seen Metallica, Iron Maiden, stuff like that. But she was more into kind of the hair bands, more of the glam bands, Wasp, stuff like
Well, I
that.
guess it
but
speaks volumes that she likes this album. you
she
know?
likes it because she's also kind of a little bit more of she's a vegan, kind of a naturalist, kind of maybe even a Wiccan kind of in a way. So
nice.
this stuff, and
I need to meet your wife.
she
We need to
liked
hang out.
last year's Enslaved album as well.
That was a good
So,
one.
Like just the more natural kind of. I don't even know how I would. You guys, I picked up Winter Thrice, and I picked up their last album, True North.
Yeah.
So, and I really like it. I'm going backwards in their discography. It's pretty heavy, kind of heavy stuff to digest and to get into. Like heavy in the sense that it's got good meat to the bones with it. You know, it's obviously got black metal. It's more black metal folk for me, I find. Like
Totally.
I have a lot of Mayhem albums. Obviously, I bought them back in the day and that because I mean, oh, Mayhem, you know, but when you're listening to this, it's so cool. And I mean, the singles off the album, Summits came out in December, and it was a phenomenal song to get you hooked. You know, the Nordic Anthem came out, and then Moon. I mean, this is
Moon is so good.
It's
Moon
so
is so
celestial and so
Yeah.
natural and so kind of. It's just a really good album, and yeah. And she liked it, and she loved Enslaved last year as well too, which I'm kind of like, whoa, you know, country music to Borknagar. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, your wife's cool shit.
So
and
your interview, you know, I watched the interview, I listened to the album obviously, and then I went out and got it. I mean, it was just
nice. Yeah.
It's such a good album, and I'm so glad I did, because now I'm going backwards. I think Winter Thrice is really good. True North is really good. And I can't remember how far back that goes. I think 4 years. There's a remaster, I think, of the original, the 25th anniversary of Borknagar's first one, I believe. So
yeah, the Archaic Course,
Yeah.
I think. And then,
really good album though, and really cool band. And I gotta admit, every song is different. Like every song is really cool. I find the vocal range is so neat, and they should be. I've put it on my, like, I've talked about it a lot online, and I've got a lot of people who follow me and stuff going like, I've heard good things about it, and they're checking it out and that. So hopefully they get a lot of mileage out of this album. I think it's really been a popular album for them.
Yeah, I think it's much more. Well, they've always been progressive, but they're far more. Last couple albums are far more just in the realm of progressive metal than black metal. I would say. Yeah.
For me,
Really good
themes.
stuff, though. I was really glad I was able to
themes.
open my eyes to that. So
it's the themes, Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah. The themes are good.
It's the themes. Yeah.
And that artwork is amazing too.
Oh, phenomenal. Yeah. And that's I'm down to one, guys. So
right,
I guess
Billy,
you're up, Billy.
Go for it.
Yep. So number 4, I have Skeletal Remains,
Nice.
Fragments of the Ageless. So this is a band I've been with since they started. I mean, a modern band, one of the original modern bands to do the old school death metal thing. They used to get knocked for sounding too much like Morbid Angel, Obituary, Autopsy. They
Pestilence.
Come on, people knock them for that? That's terrible.
Well, they said that you know, they weren't original or not, but there's critics for everybody, right? So, but that's fine. I still love the music. But what I like about these guys is they're just starting to, you know, like with every album, they develop more of their own sound. They've definitely gotten a bit more technical. You know, if you look at the two guitar players, Mike and Chris, like they're really good. Like they definitely love Morbid Angel style guitar playing, but you still see that. But they're definitely amping up the technicality in the music. It's still brutal, it's still heavy, but displays a lot of these cool refinements, and they're taking chances, right? This album ends with like a 5 or 6 minute instrumental, which you don't necessarily see in death metal these days. So I think that's cool.
See, I was going to say I'd be on the opposite spectrum of those people bashing it because it sounds too much like old school. I'm like, I like those albums that sound like that.
Yeah,
I'm not so big on them getting their own direction. Of course, they're going to do that, but I prefer their albums when they sound like Pestilence and all the old bands.
Yep. No, fair. Then number 3 is another album. I don't understand why it doesn't get more attention. It's a band called Sovereign. The album's called Altered Realities. This is their first album, so debut album. The band is incredibly talented. I would say the best way to describe this is death thrash. So very much 80s thrash. Mixed with like old school death metal, but also technicality. So if you like things like Watchtower, or you like Toxic, or there's that's thrown in there. So if I were to make a comparison, this is like the best Sadist albums, and it's very bass forward, right? So Steve DiGiorgio is not playing on this, but the bass player is so talented. So yeah, I think anyone who likes death or thrash, and especially if you like to combine them with a dab of technicality, these guys deserve more attention for sure.
And vocally, what do they sound like?
So I'd say definitely doing death metal thing, but probably more on the death side. But they jump into thrash mode at times too, but leans more on the death side. Number 2, I don't have a lot more to add about this. It's been talked about quite a bit. So for me, Blood Incantation, Absolute Elsewhere. Everybody said everything there is to say. And yeah, like obviously they're catching on, right? Because this tour is pretty much I couldn't get tickets for Toronto. Then I tried Philadelphia, New York, Montreal, sold out everywhere.
Oh, you didn't even go to Toronto?
No, I did. I ended up getting it through an auction, charity auction. So I got lucky the day before.
That's awesome.
So Noel, who does Inertia Entertainment, did an auction for like a cat charity.
Oh, that's the best. I love that.
So that's cool. So
That's
I ended up
cool.
winning that, and I keep going into some, like here in Toronto. I live in downtown Toronto. I go into record stores that don't have like big metal sections, and this thing's sitting in the new release album, like next to like Taylor Swift, and so yeah, I guess it's good to see them getting a lot of attention. It's great stuff.
Nice.
Cool.
That's it for me.
Next, you'll see Taylor Swift wearing a Blood Incantation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Crazy. All right, so I'll start with my number 4, and that is F.K.U, which stands for Freddy Krueger.
Of course.
Yes.
This is so you, Ken.
Oh yeah. I've been into this band since the start, so I love the whole kind of horror, the horror kind of metal, thrash, the whole thing. This came out in like February, so it was an earlier release on Despots Records. I like it. They're from Sweden, so Larry Lethal, who's their lead singer, is such a great vocalist. I did get a chance to interview him this year, and yeah, it was a fun time. Good talk with him. This band is great. The last album, the previous one to this, was actually 1981. I know Jimmy and I were on another podcast where we talked about it for Halloween of it was last year, wasn't it, Jimmy? Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. All horror movie references, so all the songs are taken from horror movies. They do the same here with this album. So you get the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They did a whole lot of The Burning. They went back and did a whole lot of movie references. I love it. I think it's great. It's a great band. I love the fact that they all kind of dress up in kind of like zombie horror gear. And of course, Freddy Krueger is technically their mascot. So it's a lot of fun.
Cool.
Is it 300 stab wounds that they all look like serial killers? Kind of. Did you guys catch that?
A little bit, yeah. I can see that.
I mean, to me, they did. I thought it was great. I thought it was intentional.
You mean just the way they look physically?
Yeah, like
on stage.
I don't know.
Yeah,
on stage.
I think so. Yeah, they're probably playing the gimmick a bit, right?
Yeah,
for
of
sure
course they are.
You would think, given the record, the album covers, and the songs. I would think. But speaking of that, number 3 is 200 Stab Wounds, and I know we talked about it. It's such a great
segue, Kim.
Good segue.
yeah, great segue. That's right, Kim. Yeah, such a great album. It's like A lot of thrash. It's death, but there are a
Yeah.
lot of thrash riffs on it. It's so great. And that cover, wow. I just love that cover. It's such a great album. Everyone should go buy that album. If you're really into death metal, buy it. You won't be disappointed. I know Billy and I saw them in concert and this past year in Toronto. It was a lot of fun.
Was
They're
that the
really good live.
Phoenix? Did you guys go to the Phoenix show? I know we
No.
did.
That may have been the year before,
Garrison,
maybe
wasn't it?
end of
Maybe the
last
year before.
with
The first
Frozen
time-
Soul.
we
the
saw them
first
at the
time-
Garrison, wasn't it, Billy?
Yeah, last year, end
Oh,
of
last year.
2023 with Frozen
Right.
Soul.
Right.
I swear I saw them at the Phoenix, and
They
the
did.
mosh pit was like, it was insane. It
Mhm.
was just like madness.
Yeah.
And it was my first like time experiencing them, and I was just like, this is amazing.
Didn't
Yeah.
they knock over the concession stand or something, like where they're selling their merch?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was
Well,
it was just crazy. There was like 5 people on the crowd at one time.
We
You
saw
know,
them
the-
with Dying Fetus in London, like
Oh.
back in May. They played
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
with Cruelty.
The show that Billy and I saw, they kicked ass. They were the best band of the night, as far as I'm concerned. Like it was pretty wild. But that mosh pit was insane. That's all I gotta say. It was insane, but it was a really, really good show. And number 2, I flip flop number 1 and number 2, so I made this change actually a few hours ago. So Blood Incantation is going at number 2, Absolute Elsewhere. It's a great album. You guys have pretty much covered everything about it. I think seeing them live was probably better for me because I got a chance to see how they sounded on the album. They sound live. It's incredible. They really were able to replicate the sound from the album to the live setting. Fantastic. I think that crowd was totally in awe of the whole show. Like they never missed a beat. It just went from song to song.
And the Lee's Palace audio system, the house system.
Actually, I thought it was pretty
Okay,
good.
well,
I didn't have a problem with it. I know sometimes it's kind of chintzy there, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was great. It was a fantastic show for me.
Cool.
I really liked it, except for the gigantic people in front of me. It was always when you're in a show, you got like,
And it
people
looked like they
fucking-
had a lot of props and stuff, but Lee's Palace is such a small stage, so it's
yeah.
kind of
That's
like
It's the only problem.
Oh.
Small stage. Like it was just
Yeah.
the venue. Like why there?
yeah. I guess because Live Nation owns everything at this
Mhm.
point.
Pretty
So,
much.
I'm sure Noel does the best he can, but
Yeah. Okay, so that's my number 2, and now we're going into the. We need a drum roll here for this. Number 1, the number 1 selections from everybody. So we'll go back to Kim and take the floor. Kim, go for it.
I feel like I'm gonna steal some thunder from Jason because I have a suspicion we have the same number 1 album.
Okay.
But my number 1 album is a band called Diavel, which is a Norwegian band, and Diavel translates to devil. The album is called Not Till Ande, which translates to something like Night Until Forever or Night Until the End or something like that. Discovered this band this year when I saw them at Beyond the Gates. Really, really dug their music, really liked their live show, checked them out afterwards as I always do. And I found that like I would listen to songs like over and over and over again. They have like really long songs that, just like progress and get really groovy, and lots of dark themes and, kind of in the true Norwegian black metal themes. And I guess after listening to Jason's interview with, is it Tron, the singer,
Nope.
he has a lot of very strong views about the scene and about true Norwegian black metal and things like that. And although I don't agree with everything that he says, I just have mad respect for anyone that truly stands up for what they think and
Mhm.
what they believe in, and will die on that flag. And this is really that guy. And and there's some really interesting stuff in that interview about how he doesn't know how to read music or anything. He doesn't, do a lot of practicing. He'll just sit down and write a song in like 10 minutes. And I'm like, really? Like I'm in love with that song. You wrote it in 10 minutes and like just threw it to your buddies who, did the other parts. Like, I don't know. It just felt like something unique and special to me. So yeah, that's my number one album this year. And I'm gonna shout out the previous album as well, because I really dig that one as well. So I won't talk too much more about it because I know Jason's going to talk about it next.
Okay, well then, Jason, go for it.
Well, you're wrong, Kim. My number one album is Taylor Swift's.
Woo!
Just kidding. Never listened to her, so I don't even know what she sounds like. But my number one album is of course, as Kim said, Diablo, Nat Talende, released by a very small record label. It's actually a tiny little record shop in Trondheim, Norway, called
Which
Aftermath.
is very northern Norway.
Yeah, Aftermath Music. You blink an eye, you walk by this record shop on the street, but it's a really cool metal shop. You go in, you can literally touch all the albums around you. That's how small it is. And this guy has
Cool.
a crazy collection of stuff in there. I actually went in there trying to find Celtic Frost's Cold Lake, and he just laughed at me.
He was like, because I was there, he was like, the band hates that album.
Yeah,
It was
I
like
know,
it was
dude.
like so taboo to even
Yeah.
bring it up. Like it was like, how
Yeah.
dare you?
Yeah. So anyways, his name is Havard, and he has a small record label called Aftermath Music, which is named after his record store, and he released this album. He also does a lot of like non-metal stuff, like Norwegian folk singers and stuff like that. So he's very, very in touch with what's going on in Norway, and so in touch that he knows that Djevel will appeal to a lot of old school black metal fans. So if you're a fan of second wave Norwegian black metal in the vein of the first couple of Satyricon albums, maybe some Mayhem, some early stuff like that. You would love this album. I don't think it sounds like Mayhem at all, actually, though.
No, not at all. No, it's a
No.
little bit more melodic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as Kim was saying, Tran Seekels, who's the mastermind behind this, writes all the music. He very rarely gives reviews, or sorry, interviews. Actually, never. And for some reason, he agreed to give us an interview while we were in Norway this
Yeah,
past August.
and I still don't understand why. Like it was for Allfather. We were like, hey, and
Yeah.
he
And they
chose
just gave
us
it
for
to
some
us.
reason.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I went and
Yeah.
met him at his.
I think the last interview he did was like 5 years ago or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he never shows his face public. He
Mhm.
wears a cloak on stage. No one knows what he looks like. He doesn't do pictures with fans. He doesn't do any of this stuff. He's against all that. He's like, I don't want you to like me as a person. You shouldn't even care who I am. You should care what my music is. That's kind of his opinion on
Well, true artist.
how he presents himself.
Yeah, true
And so I
artist.
went and what's that?
True artist.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I went and met him at his hotel, and I was sitting in the lobby, and I didn't know who to look for, and I had no clue. And in walks this one guy who looked like everyone else in the lobby, except he had like a skater haircut. Literally looks like a skater from the 90s. This guy, you wouldn't think he was black metal all, wearing just normal jeans and a skater shirt. And we sat down, and yeah, he laid it all out about his love for early black metal and being the flag bearer for that sound, even though he's into lots of other types of music, like Sisters of Mercy and kind of lots of other different stuff. But he does keep things true with his black metal. And so
And he's like kind of a curator for, the as far as like Norwegian black metal in the arts and
yes,
community. Like he works with the owner of Helvete, which is like the black metal's record store in Oslo that like Euronymous owned, but it was called something else then. But he works with them, and I think he helps curate like the black metal art exhibits in the library and things like that. So he's really like involved in sort of the historical part of it.
Yeah, he definitely is. And he's also a very, very successful businessman in the tech industry. And what he told me is like nobody knows what he does on the side. So he doesn't make it known because I don't know why he doesn't. Maybe he just doesn't want to mix those two worlds.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's a very kind of interesting character. So this album, if Billy, I would say give it a listen.
Okay.
It's a very atmospheric album. It is black metal in parts, but it doesn't scream black metal in like that caustic way that you might think. It's a
Yeah, it's
very
not like,
relaxing album.
yeah, yeah. It's not rough.
No,
And the songs like they really grow, you
they
know,
do.
like
Yeah.
they start out and then like because a lot of them are like pretty long, like 10 minutes or whatever.
And even vocally, would you say, Kim, it's not like that screechy kind of black metal
No,
vocal? It's a
no,
bit
not Mayhem at
more.
all. Yeah, like when
No.
you listen, Mayhem is for a specific kind of person, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But this is a lot easier to listen to, and
Yeah. He
it's
kind of,
it's moody.
it's
It's
moody.
moody.
Yeah.
It's moody.
I would
Yeah.
say his vocals are a mix between death and black, kind of riding that line somewhere in between. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll check it out.
Ooh. All right.
Since Billy loves black metal now.
Inquisition.
In little
Yeah.
bits.
What?
In little bits.
All right, Jimmy, go for it.
Well, I mean, here we are at the end, and there's not much to say, but obviously, I went with Blood Incantation.
Yay!
Nice.
I mean, I can't say anything else. Kim, I think.
Come on,
you're
there was
right.
got to be something. None of us something that none of
I
us.
think
Said.
it's atmospherical to me. I think
Mhm.
I mean I grew up in the 80s, but I was born in 71, so a lot of the 1970s prog sounds, even though I was very young, going back like when I was 9 and 10, the start of the 1980s, you can hear that in there. What I like about it, I think it's so cool. I'm a fairly big Pink Floyd fan, huge Morbid Angel fan. So in everything I've read, I heard, I've seen, you know, your interview, you know, Ken's review there, everybody just compares it to that. And it's, Kim, you said it best when it's something that's out of the box and it deserves to be in the top echelon of the albums that are released this year because it is just so different and so out there compared to everything else. I mean,
Would any
you
of
know,
us
and
agree though that there's like a bit the hype train? Do you
oh
think
yeah,
we'll fall off that hype train? Like, well, in 5 months' time, we'll be like, maybe we were on the hype
I don't know.
train with
No,
this.
I don't think
I don't
No?
know
so.
about
I
that.
don't think so. I think
don't
their
think so.
next.
Yeah.
I think their next. I think people are going to be looking forward to their next release.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
They
it's
got
going to
some,
be like I can see a part 2
they raised
to
the
this.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can see a part 2, and there's a DVD version of this. I think it sells for about $99, and it's a whole package. But apparently, it's phenomenal. And everybody's like, I've got just regular traditional guys who I talk to fairly regularly who just were blown away with this. The prog guys, like you were saying, Jason, love this. You know, and everybody, like I put on when Ken was going to the show and Billy, I put on the sold out thing on there and said, oh, they're so lucky to be going. And everybody said, I hear they're amazing live. So, you know, you've got the studio part, the album, and then hearing that they used old school instruments of the time and like you know, that sort of thing. I think it's immersive to me. It's just an immersive listening experience. And I think it's something everybody has to listen to this. And I so many people, there's death metal fans out there that are commenting, well, it's not death metal. It's like, yes, it is.
I mean, parts of it are.
It's got,
I mean, you can't deny that.
Screams 2024. It's death metal, and I don't, you know, yes, it's got this prog part to it, but that's what makes it so interesting. And I think people just have to kind of take the blinders off. You know, it's okay to like death thrash or thrash death. It's okay to mix some black metal in with this, and it's okay to have these genre mixes because it's so important. That's how you grow
and
as
that's
an
the
artist.
thing that I think like we've kind of lost. Like, you know, when death metal started in the 90s and stuff, like there was so much experimentation.
Yeah.
You know, you had bands like Macabre who were like doing some weird shit and like just singing about serial killers. And I don't know, like just there was even like early Cryptopsy was just like so different and like the
Dissection.
riffing. Yeah, that stuff was just like, we don't have that anymore. And if you do something like that, people are like, that's not death metal. Like, fuck you.
Well,
you know?
I think this album is proving that there's people are coming around, because
and you know
this
what's
album
I hope
cannot
so.
be as big as it is without that support.
You've got two death. I think you've got two death metal albums here that are like almost they complement each other. You've got the brutalization of one that you've got the death and thrash for 200 Stabwounds that is just phenomenal. This is a great album, but then you have this that takes it kind of one step further by almost going behind. I mean, you know, you have to be stoned to really understand it. I think it's such a good album.
Jim, you know what you need to do, because this happened to me, is you need to go watch Stargate now. Because like
exactly.
I don't know why it was on TV. Like, I feel like it was like influenced by this album coming out. Like the network was like, we need to play Stargate on this on the TV. But yeah, I don't know. It was kind of some cool perspective of watching that movie.
Jason's interview, my wife could hear it, me playing it, and she asked me some questions because she watches quite a bit of true crime, like real hardcore true crime. I'm kind of scared for my life. So if I go missing,
I really need to meet your wife.
Billy, call the police. No, I'm just kidding. But she listened to it. And she, what you guys were talking about, she was like, "Yeah, that was in one of my podcasts. What's this band?" And I was like, "Oh, it's super cool." But, anyways, it's just really deep stuff and just really, really great. And you guys have said it all, although I've talked for 5 minutes on it.
One thing I was going to say is, do you think they'll continue this route, or do you think they'll abandon death metal? Because they now are at that point where they could really take things way out into the progressive world, like Opeth kind of left things behind a bit. I know Isaac said they'll never do that, but there's always that temptation, I think, for musicians.
I think I'm going to predict that the next album is going to be very death metal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with Kim. I think they're going to go maybe a bit heavier just so they can kind of, but I think they're going to straddle that line. I think they've got themselves. I mean, this is going to be a hard album to top, but I think they've got themselves in a great spot where, and you know, a very smart, very thinking person's band. And I think that's where they're going to really, really gain a lot of momentum with it. But, you know, Opeth, maybe they are, but I think a lot of people, I mean, Opeth lost a lot of listeners when they went that route. And there was, even though they gained a lot as well, but you know, and you hear the comments now. I mean, Billy talked about the Opeth record a couple weeks ago, and I jumped into it. I've listened to it about 6 times, and every time I listen to it, I'm hearing more and more. It didn't make my 15, only because it's so much to digest, you know.
Yeah, I think the Blood Incantation is more streamlined.
Yeah.
In that way, it's more palatable.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is what they've done. Like, they did that soundtrack album. It was kind of soundtracky.
Oh yeah.
And they came out, and then they had a death metal album, and then they came out with this. So they're kind of like going back and forth.
Yep.
As they
I've
should.
always, like with Opeth, I feel like Opeth's approach to progressive rock is more organic and more not as easily digestible by death metal heads.
Right.
Whereas I think Blood Incantation, it's more angular.
Yeah.
Like things are more angular and more, the progressive stuff is not as out there, not as fluidy.
I like Yes, I like Floyd, I like Marillion, I like Saga. I like a lot of these bands even from the 80s that were big, but I like a lot of progressive rock, even the more commercially stuff. I definitely been drawn to it, and this just filled like almost like a void that was missing, and it just was like it was just like, yes, this is what the industry needs right now, and I think it fills a void that. And they were so smart because they came up with it. I think it's just a groundbreaking album, and I think in 10 years people will still be talking about this album.
I think so too.
Yeah,
it's gonna be in like the history.
Oh yeah,
books.
Cool.
I wish more bands would do stuff like this.
Yeah. Okay, Bill, you're up next, and I think I know what your number one is, but go for it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. What was your number two again, Jim?
My number 2 was Borknagar's Fall.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say we have the same top two, but reverse, but no, I'm wrong. So my number one is 200 stab wounds,
Yeah, that's
Whoa.
manic procedures. Um, I can't fully put my fingers on this, why I love this band so much. Like I can't say they're the most original, or they're certainly nothing like what Incantation is doing. But like I just love the brutality
Mhm.
of the music. They're getting much better musically. They're tighter as a band. It's precision playing. I mean, Ken, you mentioned it. There's thrashy elements.
Yeah.
But like they're a death metal band that can like really build in the hooks into the songs, and those hooks just stick with me. But this is one of those bands where my opinion of the music is definitely influenced by the live show.
Mm.
I've got to see these guys like 8 or 9 times, and every time I love it. Like I might be saying they're my current favorite live band.
Wow.
It's just
They're so fun. It's
yeah,
so
it's
fun to
complete
see them live.
chaos.
Yeah.
It's complete chaos. I've seen them in churches. I've seen them in
Wow.
2,000 people venues. I've seen them in like 100 people venues.
Did
And
you
it's
see them on a
chaos.
boat though?
Huh?
Did you see them on a boat?
No, not yet. But there's still 28 bands to be announced for this year. So fingers crossed. So yeah, just it's just but I do think that my love of them live is a big factor in why I love this band so much.
Wicked.
Cool. All right.
Nice.
All right. So
Ken.
my number one
This is it.
might surprise you guys a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I have
So
no idea what your number one is.
Yeah,
I
neither
went
do
with I went with Aborted-Vault of Horrors.
I have it here.
Okay, not surprised now that you say it.
So visually, no, I'm a very visual person, of course, because I love art. So that cover, and I talked to Jim about this before. That cover is absolutely amazing, because obviously it's the centerpiece that was in the movie The Church, Michel Sauvé, an 80s horror movie. And
Was it? Really?
Yeah, if you watch The Church, and you'll see that image in the art, it's actually in the movie itself. So the cover's a play on that.
Oh,
The
I
effects was done
see. I
by
see.
Sergio Civiletti. So yeah, if you watch the movie, it's there. The other thing
This
about
looks like a fucked up movie. Sorry.
it is a fucked up
And the
movie.
back cover is pretty cool too, Ken.
Yeah. The back cover, I love the back cover as well. It's great. Both are fantastic. But what I like about that cover, before we get to the music, but what I like about that cover though, is I love how there's like VHS tapes thrown in there of like like Hellraiser, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, Halloween. I love it.
Nostalgic.
Yeah, it reminded me of Iron Maiden's "Somewhere in Time" album, where
Lots of
they're
little Easter eggs.
Easter
yeah,
eggs.
yeah, exactly. A lot of little Easter eggs in there. That's why I love it so much. But the music is great. I mean, I've liked this band for years. I mean, I know they started out originally more in the grindcore style way back when they started out, and then they sort of went more death metal as it progressed and evolved. But I love it. I love this album quite a bit because it's a good mixture of like grindcore. It's still got death metal. It's nasty. It's a lot of really nice grisly kind of riffs to it. It's fast. It's got a really fast pace to it. It's brutal at times. It's such a great album. I totally really dig this album so much. And I was like, well, I was so surprised when I saw it. I was like, wow, that cover. The cover got me first. That was the first thing I saw was the cover. And it just reminded me of growing back up in the 80s, and then we've talked about this on Thrashcast before, like going to record stores and then just seeing an album cover and not even knowing what the music is. And
Oh, those were the days.
Oh yeah.
that's like saying you bought it just based on the album art. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I obviously know the band, but I mean, when I saw that cover, I was like, oh, I gotta have this.
I
So
have
that
a
would
kind
be
of a story about that. Like back when I worked for PhD, we had like the warehouse full of music, and every month, part of our like perks, I guess, or whatever, is that you could go into the warehouse and you could take 2 things home.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had a shelf for Metal Blade, we had a shelf for Relapse, we had a shelf for, you know, Nuclear Blast or whatever. And I would just like walk up and down and I'd be like, this looks cool. This looks cool. Take it home. And I discovered so many bands that way.
Nice.
It was like my
Cool.
personal little record store.
I miss those days.
Same with
Me
me.
too.
I miss those days. You can't. I mean, I used to go in a record peddler back in the day, and you know, I'd always be looking at the cassettes that came out and buying.
Oh, the anticipation! Like, you get singles that drop, and you hear them, and there's no way to get away from it. But that's how I got into Grim Reaper. I bought See You in Hell. I saw it, and I was like, okay, this is cool. That's how I first got into Metallica. Bought Kill 'Em All on Bonsai Records at Woolco, and I was like, this looks cool.
Woolco.
I bought it, you know. Woolco.
Publishers clear. No, what was the non-published clearinghouse? What was the like you got
Columbia.
like Columbia
House.
House. Yeah, you got like 10 albums for 1 penny.
Yeah.
And you could
Something like
only base it on the little tiny thumbnail of
Yeah.
a picture.
Yeah, that's all you got. That's
Yeah.
all you got.
How times have changed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so much. I grew up in Scarborough, so I used to go to when the A&A Records was around, they had an
Oh, yeah.
A&A kind of warehouse, so you could go in every week and buy shit. I love going in there because I just go in there and you just see album, cassettes, vinyl. It was great. I miss those kind of days, but
Oh, yeah.
That's like days of future past now. It's like you can't get it anymore.
Yeah.
And
No.
what are you gonna do? It just is.
The new generation will never understand.
No.
Oh, no, because they're all with the Spotify thing and
We may be old, but we lived it. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like we lived it. Like I mean, I don't mind Spotify, but I hardly ever go on it. Like I just don't see I'd rather just listen to my albums. And I still have iTunes, so all my albums are pretty much on. I just export everything to iTunes.
Yeah.
So if I want to listen to a full album, I just put on my iTunes, and you got an album.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's my number one for this year. But
Holy cow.
We did it.
we did, yes.
Yeah.
So I guess
Everyone-
if it was a consolidated list, I'm guessing Blood Incantation.
Blood Incantation, 100%.
We'll be on that list. Yeah,
Yeah.
Big surprise.
guaranteed.
The rest is harder though. Although Ken, Jim, and I had 200 stab wounds,
Yeah.
Kim and Jason didn't, so that would probably fall down the ranking.
But then like 3 of us had Borknagar, 3 of
Yep.
us had
Yeah.
Jotun.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
Very,
Really
very
good.
Yep.
Oh, this is a wicked show.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks
Does
for having us
anyone-
on, guys. It was a lot
Oh,
of
no
fun.
problem. Well, I'm glad you guys came on. Does anyone have any? I know it was mentioned earlier. Does anyone have any honorable mentions they want to bring up?
Yeah, I have one thing to ask the group, and
Yeah.
I guess it's an honorable mention, but given we're all Canadian, so I was watching a YouTube clip of a channel I love, and they were doing their top lists. And so Morbid Angel came up a few times today. So I've been listening to this album when they mentioned it. I love it. It's a band from Vancouver called Reversed. I don't know if you guys know them, but the way the band
No.
was described is basically identical to the earliest demos from Morbid Angel and the Altars of Madness album. And so I went and listened to that. That's exactly what they sound like. And they're from our own
No.
country.
Really?
Interesting.
So yeah, that's
I've heard
really
them.
cool. The album's called Wildly Possessed.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to get me a copy. But I mean, it just goes to show you we live in Canada, and I always end up hearing.
That's it there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, cool.
yeah. I always hear about.
I'm looking at
Canadian
their
metal bands.
Facebook page, and the the image they have, it reminds me of Hell Butcher. Like they're all in studs
Yeah,
and
yeah,
spikes
yeah.
and leather and
But so,
Okay.
Jason, you mentioned like you love stuff that sounds like this is as old school Morbid Angel as you get.
Yeah, I like that Aberration band
2024.
from Norway. So yeah, it's probably the same kind of thing that I had on my list. So definitely gonna check
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
did
it
you
looks
check
good.
did you check it out yet, Billy? Did you
Yeah,
listen?
no, I played it like 3-4 times.
Oh,
It's
nice,
exactly as it was described, as
Nice.
old school Morbid Angel as you get.
I wanted to ask you guys, just as one last thing, maybe a quick round. What are you looking forward to in 2025? Like number
Ooh.
one album?
Anthrax for me.
Yeah, is it coming?
Yeah, 2025. Rumored. And then Shadows Fall would be the second one for me.
They just released a single.
Yes,
Yeah.
the single just
Yeah.
came out, but the album, they're working on it now.
Okay, yeah. What'd you
Love the
think of the
single.
single? Yeah,
I loved it. I loved it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's what I expect from that band.
cool.
Guitarist
Right
first.
now, for me, Dream Theater's new album, I'm kind of
Oh,
looking
yeah.
forward. The
Yeah.
first two singles are amazing. I love Dream Theater. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll definitely be in one of my top lists, I would assume, when we do the show next year.
Nice, cool.
Cool. I'll go new Coroner album and
Yeah.
Coroner 2025 tour.
Yeah, coming to Toronto.
Original lineup?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw them in Philly 2 years ago. It was the original guys.
Interesting.
Fantastic. Just as good as they were back in the 80s.
I'm going to go with two. First would be Thorns, which is old school
Mm.
Norwegian black metal band. The guy who created Thorns ended up going to jail because he accompanied Varg when they murdered Euronymous. He was the guy who drove the car.
Right.
Oh,
But
yeah.
he's been credited as coming up with the early Norwegian black metal sound. And he has a new album coming out. And Scour, which is Phil Anselmo's death black metal band.
Oh, yeah.
They had their first single called Gold, which is super, or no, the first single, I can't remember what it's called, but the album's called Gold, which came out a couple of weeks ago, and it's super, super awesome. Some really great gutturals by Phil on that song.
Wicked.
I am very out of the loop of what's coming up next year, so I don't have anything, but everything that you guys said sounds exciting, so looking forward to all that. I think I'm looking forward to photographing like King Diamond and Celtic Frost in August, so
Nice.
Yeah.
excited for that. But
Cool.
Hopefully King Diamond doesn't cancel.
yeah,
Good point.
I think Celtic Frost is doing like the 30th anniversary of Cold Lake, 40th
Yes.
Ooh.
on that.
oh,
That's a
very
big
cool.
one.
No,
Yeah.
not happening.
Cool.
That would be amazing, but it's not happening.
No, they won't. They won't.
Cherry
do
Orchards,
taunts on
that
but-
video.
What's that, Ken?
Cherry
Yeah.
Orchards, that video. Oh, my
Oh, it's so
God.
good.
Yeah, that's a great video. I love that video. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think
Good
it's
video.
okay. I got into an argument online. I think it's more like an LA gun sound is what I get out of it. I don't find it glammy, but more of a maybe a sleaze rock
Sleazy.
sound.
Yeah.
And they're fucking hideous. It's just, that's like if you and I just teased our hair, Jim. All of us actually. Kim might pull it off, but yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Try to make me look like Bon Jovi.
Well, Jason, we'll still have to do our Celtic Frost podcast. I still
We're
want
doing it. Yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it for Allfather. It's happening.
Okay, cool.
Wicked.
Oh, we got to get Justin on that one.
If he likes the album, we'll see.
Oh, he really wanted to do Celtic Frost.
I don't think he'll want to do that album, but we'll find out.
Yes,
Yeah. You never know. There are some of us out there.
that's true. Very, very true.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot, man. This was so
Yeah.
fun. We kept it at around the 2-hour mark. So
Yeah.
Just
I'm
over.
glad you guys came on.
Yeah.
I'll get to talk our albums and stuff. So
And next week's show.
yes. So next week it's going to be our last show, episode 40.
And it's a special one,
September.
right?
No, we're just going to do.
This is our kind of our special one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is our special kind of edition.
Like
Next
special
week is
guest.
number 40 next week, so we're doing Overkill Years of Decay.
Oh,
Nice.
fucking
Jimmy's
love
gonna
that
be
album.
hosting that.
Oh man.
And that'll be it for December, and then we come back for another show on January 3rd.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Nice.
Cool.
Great.
Cool.
All
Well,
right. All right, guys. So we appreciate everyone coming on and talking about stuff. Big thanks to both Kim and Jason from Allfather to join us tonight. Check
Happy
out
to be here.
Allfather. Check out Allfather Metal. You can find them on Facebook, YouTube.
Instagram.
Go on the internet. You can find them
all the places.
all the places, and we're all on board. We all write for them. So yeah, check them out.
Awesome.
Happy holidays.
And that's
Well,
right. Merry
yeah.
Christmas is just around the corner. Happy holidays. And with that being said, guys, let's just call it a night and see everybody later.
All right.
Thanks, guys.